When you're solving equations involving square roots, an important step before you try to get rid of the root is to get the root by itself. You get the root by itself first, then you raise both sides to a power to get rid of the root. To get rid of a square root, you raise both sides to the second. To get rid of a cube root, you would raise both sides to the third. To get rid of a fourth root, you would raise both sides to the fourth, and so on. Then you solve the equation that's left and check your answers. So when we have this equation, the square root of 8x plus 20 minus x equals 0, we need to isolate the square root and get it by itself on one side of the equation before we try to get rid of the square root. Here we add x to both sides, and we're left with the square root of 8x plus 20 is equal to x. Now that we've got the root by itself, we can put parentheses around both sides and square both sides. On the left side, the square root of 8x plus 20 squared, the square root and square cancel out. We have 8x plus 20. On the right side, x squared is x squared. When you have an equation with x squared in it, we know we're probably going to try to solve it by factoring. So let's move everything over to the side of the equation where the x squared is. We do that by subtracting 8x from both sides and subtracting 20 from both sides. And this gives us 0 equals x squared minus 8x minus 20. Now that we've got 0 on one side, we can solve by factoring. It starts with x squared, so we put x and x at the beginning of each group. To multiply to be negative 20 and add up to negative 8, you would have minus 10 and plus 2. To finish, we take each of those factors and set them equal to 0. X minus 10 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. The first one, you add 10 to both sides, and we have x is equal to 10. The next one, you subtract 2 from both sides, and we have x is equal to negative 2. Now to check these, one at a time, we're going to put them in the original equation for x. So when we put 10 in for x, we have the square root of 8 times 10 plus 20 minus 10 is equal to 0. Under that square root, 8 times 10 is 80. 80 plus 20 is 100. So we have the square root of 100 minus 10 equals 0. This gives us 10 minus 10 equals 0, and that's true. So x equals 10 is a solution to that equation. When we check negative 2, putting that in both places for x, the square root of 8 times negative 2 plus 20 minus negative 2 equals 0. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16, and negative 16 plus 20 is 4. Minus negative 2 is a plus 2, so the square root of 4 plus 2 equals 0. Here we have 2 plus 2 equals 0, which is false. So x equals negative 2 is not a solution to that equation. If you would like to try the next problem, pause the video now and resume when you're ready to see the solution. Here, to get the root by itself, we need to get rid of that 2 at the beginning before we start squaring things. So to get rid of a positive 2, we subtract 2 from both sides. This leaves us with the equation the square root of 4 minus x is equal to x minus 2. One thing you'll notice I've been saying in these videos, when you're trying to get rid of the root, you put parentheses around both sides and square both sides. On the left side, when we do that, the square root of 4 minus x squared, the square root and square cancel out, and we have 4 minus x. On the right side, it's not x squared minus 2 squared, it's x minus 2 squared. So we can think of it as x minus 2 multiplied by itself. And when we use the FOIL method, the first terms, x times x, would be x squared. The outside terms, x times negative 2 is minus 2x. The inside terms, negative 2 times x is minus 2x. The last terms, negative 2 times negative 2 is a plus 4. And since this is an x squared equation, we're going to want to get everything to the side where the x squared is. We'll subtract 4 from both sides and add x to both sides. This gives us 0 equals x squared, and then negative 2x minus 2x plus x is minus 3x. 4 and minus 4 cancel out. So now to factor it, we can factor out a greatest common factor of x. And we have 0 equals x times x minus 3. We set both of these equal to 0, and we have x equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Now we check these in the original equation. First, we put 0 in both spots for x. 2 plus the square root of 4 minus 0 equals 0. Well, 4 minus 0 is 4, so we have 2 plus the square root of 4 equals 0. The square root of 4 is 2, so we have 2 plus 2 equals 0, but that's false. So x equals 0 is not a solution to that equation. The next one, we add 3 to both sides, and we have x equals 3. When we check that in the original equation, we have 2 plus the square root of 4 minus 3 equals 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. So 2 plus the square root of 1 equals 3. The square root of 1 is 1. We have 2 plus 1 equals 3, which is true. So x equals 3 is a solution to that equation. You'll often end up with one true answer and one false answer, but sometimes they are both true or both false. So you do need to check if you have multiple answers, each individual answer one at a time. If you'd like to try the next problem on your own, pause the video now and resume when you're ready to see the solution. Here, to get the root by itself, we subtract 3 from both sides, leaving us with negative square root of 2x minus 3 equals x minus 3. Now you can proceed by getting rid of the negative sign, dividing everything by negative 1. One shortcut that helps you save time on some problems is to remember that squaring gets rid of square roots. Squaring also gets rid of negative signs. So if you have a negative sign in front of a square root, you can get rid of it by dividing by negative 1 on both sides, or you can just go ahead and put parentheses around both sides and square both sides. On the left side, squaring gets rid of the negative sign and the radical sign, and we just end up with 2x minus 3. If that had been a negative 2 or a negative 3 or something like that in front of the square root, we wouldn't be able to use this shortcut trick. But when it's just a negative sign in front of your square root, you can go ahead and put parentheses around both sides and square both sides, and squaring will get rid of the negative and the radical sign. Now on the right side, we think of this as x minus 3 times x minus 3. Using the FOIL method, x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is minus 3x. Negative 3 times x is minus 3x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. To get 0 on one side so we can try to factor, We subtract 2x from both sides and add 3 to both sides. This leaves us with 0 equals x squared. Then negative 3x minus 2x is minus 8x. 9 plus 3 is plus 12. So now we can proceed with factoring. It starts with x squared, so we'll put x and x at the beginning of each group. To multiply to be a positive 12 and add up to negative 8, we could use a negative 2 and a negative 6. Splitting it up into small equations, we have x minus 2 equals 0, x minus 6 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides of the first one, and we have x equals 2. Add 6 to both sides of the second one, and we have x is equal to 6. Now we check our solutions. First, we'll put 2 in both places for x, and we have 3 minus the square root of 2 times 2 minus 3 equals 2. Under that square root, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. So we have 3 minus 1 equals 2. That's true. So x equals 2 is a solution to that equation. When we check 6, 3 minus the square root of 2 times 6 minus 3 equals 6. 2 times 6 is 12. 12 minus 3 is 9. We have 3 minus the square root of 9 equals 6. The square root of 9 is 3. We have 3 minus 3 equals 6. That's false. So x equals 6 is not a solution. And our only solution to that equation is x equals 2.